The beach stretched in a quiet, endless arc, untouched by time, where the golden sand met the restless kiss of the cerulean sea. Jagged cliffs framed the shore, their weathered faces streaked with veins of white limestone, as if the earth itself bore the ghosts of forgotten stories. The scent of salt and wild rosemary drifted through the air, mingling with the distant echo of waves sighing against the rocks. Christina Moretti stepped onto the ancient sand, feeling as if she belonged here, though it was her first time ever visiting the remote beach. Perhaps it was because she was woman caught between two worlds, the past she unearthed with her hands and the present she could never quite grasp. With chestnut waves framing her sun-kissed face and dark, searching eyes, she carried the beauty of someone who belonged to another time. There was something timeless about her. Sometimes she felt as if she had walked through centuries instead of mere decades. Taking a deep breath of the salt air and enjoying the warmth of the setting sun on her face, she looked at the ruins. The ancient ruins, half buried in the sand and ivy, were what brought this young archaeologist here. Fragments of crumbling marble columns, broken mosaics depicting gods with hollowed eyes, and the skeletal remains of a forgotten Roman villa. The archways, though fractured by centuries, still held a strange, defiant grace. She admired the long shadows they cast beneath the setting sun. Here, time felt blurred, as if past and present wove together in a quiet, eerie harmony. The locals whispered that the ruins were cursed, that lovers who walked too close to the tide would hear voices murmuring on the wind, calling them deeper into the sea's embrace. On moonlit nights the water shimmered with an unnatural glow, and those who lingered swore they saw figures moving between the pillars. Perhaps they were shadows of a love lost to the tides, forever waiting to be found. It was beautiful, haunting, and heartbreakingly still. It was a place where history breathed, and the sea kept its secrets. Christina loved them, and was excited to get to work. She was used to adventuring on her own, bold and passionate about art and history. Her assignment here on the remote beach in Italy was a dream for her. The evening air was warm, laced with salt, and the distant scent of wild rosemary. The ruins loomed around Christina, their broken columns casting long shadows in the fading light. She sat cross-legged on a flat piece of stone, her leather-bound sketchbook resting against her knee, her charcoal-stained fingers moving swiftly across the page. It was dusk, but she was eager to begin. She would have at least another hour of fading light in which she could work. She was brilliant, driven, a scholar of lost civilizations and forgotten whispers. The thrill of discovery was her greatest love, her fingers dusting away centuries of dirt to reveal a fragment of history, the delicate reconstruction of a mosaic, the way ruins told stories that no book ever could. In the depths of excavation sites, beneath the Italian sun, or by candlelight in her study, she felt most alive, and yet there was an ache beneath her passion, a loneliness she never spoke of. As she sketched in the fading light, she tried to fight off a melancholy that was becoming so familiar to her, an unwanted guest in her inner world. Christina had dedicated her life to archaeology, but archaeology did not hold her at night. She spent her evenings wrapped in books and faded maps, tracing the outlines of ancient lovers, frozen in stone, wondering if she would ever know a passion like theirs. She longed for something or someone who could break through the walls she had built around herself, someone who would look at her the way she looked at the past, with wonder, reverence, and devotion. But love was elusive, just like the ruins she so passionately studied. And so, Christina continued chasing stories of the dead while her own remained unwritten. She had lost track of time, caught in the quiet beauty of the crumbling villa, the way the sea had swallowed pieces of it, yet left behind just enough to tell its story. A breeze stirred the dry grass, and she shivered. That was when she felt it. Someone was watching her. The sensation prickled at the back of her neck, a weight in the air, something just beyond her vision. Slowly, she lifted her gaze from the page, scanning the ruins. He stood in the shadows beneath an archway where the stone had darkened with age and damp, tall, still, watching. So, Christina's pulse quickened. The man was impossibly striking, his features sharp and sculpted, like something carved from marble. There was an unearthly stillness to him, an intensity in the way he held himself. Christina wondered if he belonged to the world of the living. The dying sunlight caught in his dark hair, and his clothes, simple, old-fashioned, yet strangely elegant, seemed untouched by the dust that clung to everything else on the beach. Christina, unsettled yet intrigued, gave him a polite nod and a cautious smile. "You're trespassing," he said, his voice low and smooth, edged with something unreadable. "I beg your pardon?" He stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. The air around them seemed to shift, the wind dying, the ruins growing impossibly quiet. Even the clatter of seagulls died down. Everything seemed to hold its breath, as if watching the pair. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His gaze lingered on her sketchbook. "These ruins, they are not as dead as they seem." Christina pushed away the unease gnawing in her stomach. She didn't fear the man, but the atmosphere around him sent prickles up her spine. She could not name way. "I am an archaeologist. I have permission to be here." The corner of his mouth lifted, but it wasn't quite a smile, more like something sad, knowing. "Permission," he echoed, as if the word was foreign to him. His gaze shifted toward the sea, where the tide was creeping in, slow but relentless. "You think that matters to them?" A cold breeze rose, and she wrapped her arms around herself. "Who are you?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. "Luca," he said simply. The name settled over her like a whisper from another time. He stepped even closer now, close enough for her to see the shadows beneath his eyes and a strange incandescence in the way the light touched his skin. Not quite natural, not quite real. "The tide brings more than just water," he murmured. "Stay too long, and you will hear them. The ones who were lost." Christina's throat tightened. "What do you mean?" Luca stared intently into her eyes. There was something dark and sorrowful in his expression. He was imploring her to listen to him, to trust him. "This place does not like to be remembered." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And it does not let go of those who listen." The waves crashed louder against the shore. Christina's breath rasped. Somewhere beneath the wind and water, she thought she heard something else, faint and distant. Was it a whisper just beneath the tide? She turned toward the sea, but when she looked back, Luca was gone. The ruins beneath the moon. Christina spent her days doing her shopping and errands in the small village by the remote beach. She couldn't wait to get back to the ruins each evening. Dusk becomes her favorite time to visit, to make her sketches. The villagers gossiped about the strange young archaeologist, so solitary, so melancholy, elusive as a moonbeam. She seemed to be lost in a dream, not quite of this world, perpetually distracted by the past and its mysteries. Christina told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. Yet, night after night, she returned. The ruins were different in the dark, draped in silver moonlight. In the dying light of each day, the sea murmured secrets only the wind could understand. The scent of salt and damp stone filled the air, and beyond the broken archways, the tide whispered against the shore. And Luca was always there, waiting, watching. At first, he lingered in the shadows, his voice barely more than an echo, dancing on the wind. But as the nights passed, he let her closer. His sadness clung to him like mist. It was woven into every word, every glance, every moment he stood before her. He was beautiful, yet impossibly distant. Christina's curiosity about him grew. Who was this mysterious man, and what did he want? She knew she should fear him. He never spoke of where he came from. He never explained how he knew the ruins so intimately, as if he had walked among them when they were still whole, and when her fingers brushed his skin, it was cool, cooler than it should have been, even in the night air. But she was drawn to him, to his sorrow, to the way he looked at her like she was someone he had lost long ago. "Why do you come back?" Luca asked one night. She could have lied. She could have told him it was for the ruins, for the mysteries of the past, for the whispers of the past that called to her as they always had. But it was him. "Because of you," she admitted. Luca exhaled softly, as if her words pained him. His fingers ghosted over her cheek, light as sea foam, vanishing before she could press into his touch. "You shouldn't," he murmured. But she did. And so she returned again and again. Because she did not know who reached for whom first. One night, beneath the moon's watchful gaze, his lips brushed hers, cold as the tide at dawn, yet impossibly soft. The scent of the sea filled her lungs, wrapping around her, inside her, salt and sorrow, longing and something deeper, something eternal. When he pulled away, she tasted the ocean on her lips. Luca looked at her with an ache so deep she felt it in her soul. "You don't understand what you've done," he whispered. The wind howled through the ruins, and somewhere in the distance, the waves crashed harder against the shore. But Christina did not pull away. She did not want to escape the past. She wanted to be part of it. The storm had come suddenly, rolling in with a violence that shook the cliffs. Christina stood among the ruins, her heart pounding, as she turned toward Luca. He was watching the sea, his expression unreadable, his dark eyes filled with something she couldn't name. The waves crashed against the shore, rising higher, hungry and insistent. She had spent her days searching for the past, brushing dust from bones, piecing together lives long gone. But now the past stood before her, breathing, sorrowful, waiting. "Luca," she whispered, stepping toward him, "tell me the truth." He turned to her slowly. The wind caught in his hair, in the folds of his shirt that never seemed to wrinkle or change. He had always been like this, unreal, untouchable, something slipping between the present and something far older. "You already know," he said. She shook her head, refusing the answer before it could settle inside her. "No, Her breath caught. "You can't be." Luca's lips curled into something sad. He lifted his hand, brushing his fingers against her cheek, and she shivered, cold, always cold. "I was a man once," he murmured. "A long time ago." The words felt like a weight pressing into her chest. She wanted to deny them, but the truth was already unraveling inside her, fitting into all the spaces she had tried to ignore. "You were here," she whispered, "when this was still a villa, when these ruins weren't ruins at all." Luca nodded. "I was in love, and love is what doomed me." A gust of wind tore through the ruins, lifting sand and salt into the air. The ocean roared. Christina felt the tide inch closer, creeping toward her feet, as if it knew. "The sea took me," Luca continued. His voice was distant, as if he was seeing it all again, trapped in an endless cycle of memory. "I was cursed to remain here, to watch the tide rise and fall, never able to leave, never able to rest." He exhaled, his gaze darkening. "And now it wants you." The words struck her like ice. She took a step back. "No," she breathed. "No, that's not." But she had felt it. The pull, the whispers in the waves, the way the ruins seemed to breathe when she was near. She had thought it was history calling to her. It had never been history. It had been them, the lost ones, the sea's lovers. Luca's hand closed around her wrist, gentle but firm. "You have to leave, Christina." She looked up at him, at the pain in his face, the longing, the helplessness. The sea had stolen him once. It had held him in its grasp for centuries, and now it wanted to take her too. But Christina's heart was breaking, not from fear, not from the cold wind biting at her skin, but because she knew that if she left, she would never see him again, and she was not sure she could bear that. The waves surged closer, licking at the stone. The wind howled through the ruins like a voice, like a song, like something waiting to be answered. Luca's fingers tightened around hers. "Please," he whispered, "don't let it take you too." And Christina knew that if she stayed, if she let herself drown in the past, she would never escape. But if she left, she would lose Luca forever. The choice beneath the waves. The tide was rising fast. The waves crashed against the shore, devouring the sand in great foaming swells. The wind howled through the ruins, tearing at Christina's clothes, lifting her hair like ghostly fingers. The sea was calling, whispering to her in a language she did not understand, but felt in her bones. And Luca was standing at the water's edge. His dark eyes bore into hers, filled with sorrow, with longing, and with something else, something deeper, something final. He reached for her, but the wind stole his touch before it could land. "You have to go," he pleaded, "now!" But she couldn't move. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs, but her feet remained planted in the wet sand. The ocean swirled around her ankles, pulling at her, coaxing her closer. "I can't leave you," she whispered. Luca closed his eyes, his expression twisting in anguish. "You must." Another wave crashed, higher this time, drenching her up to her knees. The salt burned against her skin. She shuddered. "Christina," Luca said desperately, "if you stay, you will be lost, like me, trapped here, caught in the tide, unable to move forward, unable to." His voice broke. "You still have a choice." "Do I?" The thought slithered through her mind, because hadn't she already chosen? Hadn't the sea already marked her? The moment she had stepped onto this beach, the moment she had met Luca beneath the ruins, hadn't she felt it? Felt the pull, the inevitability of it? The water licked higher, curling around her thighs, icy and relentless. A distant part of her knew she should run, that she should fight, that she should listen to the raw desperation in Luca's voice and turn back, flee up the rocky cliffs before it was too late. But when she looked at him, standing in the rising surf, beautiful and tragic, his soaked shirt clinging to his form like a second skin, his dark hair dripping with seawater, she knew she could not leave him. She would not. The curse had already decided for her. Tears burned in Luca's eyes as he shook his head, stepping backward into the tide. "No," he whispered. "Christina, please." But she was already moving toward him. The waves rose around them, swirling higher, folding them into their embrace. Luca caught her wrists, his hands trembling. She could see the devastation in his face, the heartbreak of a man who had lost everything, again and again. The water surged past her waist. "This isn't love," he begged. "This is the curse. You don't understand." She cupped his face in her hands, salt water clinging to his skin. "I do understand," she whispered. The next wave knocked her off balance. Luca caught her, held her against him, his arms banding around her, like he could somehow keep her safe. But there was no safety now. Only the sea. The tide roared as the waves crashed over them, pulling them under, into the darkness and cold. The last thing Isabella saw was Luca's face, his lips parted in a silent cry, his eyes wide with anguish, with love, with fate. And then there was only silence, only water, only the sea, taking what it had already claimed. The next morning the ruins stood silent. The tide had receded, leaving behind smooth, unbroken sand. No footprints, no sign that anyone had ever been there at all. But if you stood close enough to the shore, close enough to listen beneath the crash of the waves, you might hear it. a whisper, a name carried out to sea. At dawn, the fisherman found the sketchbook. It had washed up on the shore, just beyond the ruins, a single, leather-bound sketchbook, its pages soaked and curling at the edges, the charcoal drawings blurred into shadowy ghosts. But there was no sign of Christina. The villagers whispered among themselves, glancing warily at the ruins that loomed above the cliffs. The tide had taken many things before, ships, footprints, lovers, but it had never returned them. By midday, the search was abandoned. By nightfall, the stories had already begun. The ruins remained unchanged, standing as they always had, silent, eternal, watching. But those who wandered too close swore the air felt different, heavier, like something unseen was waiting just beyond the veil of reality. And then there was the music. On quiet nights, beneath the crash of the waves, a violin could be heard, a slow, mournful tune drifting across the shore. The melody was ancient, aching, woven with longing and sorrow. It rose and fell with the tide, vanishing just before dawn. And sometimes, when the wind howled through the ruins, carrying salt and mist into the village, another sound joined it, a woman's voice whispering on the breeze, calling for someone who had never truly left, and waiting forever for the sea to bring him back.